Hello everyone. In this tutorial, we will learn about abstraction. Abstraction is a process of hiding implementation details and showing only the functionality to the user. You can consider it like this. You can see a movie without knowing the details, that how much time it took to create that movie. Similarly, you can take another example. When you send an email, you enter your text, you choose the recipient and click on send button. It doesn't bother you that how it reaches your friend. So this is called abstraction, that is data hiding. Abstraction can be achieved by two ways. The first one is abstract classes. By using abstract classes, we can achieve 0 to 100% of abstraction. That means we can hide our data from 0 to 100%. And the another way to achieve abstraction is interface. By using interface, you will achieve 100% abstraction. So in this tutorial, we will have a look at the abstract classes and abstract methods. Then in our next tutorial, we will have a look at the interface. There are few rules you have to follow while creating an abstract class and abstract method. So to understand that, let's take an example of a rescue mission. I have created a program named rescue mission. So now let's create the program in which you are commander-in-chief who has been given order from the chief, that is your boss, to rescue the people and kill the enemies. So now let's create our first class, that is class chief, and let's create some method. So our first method is void rescue. This is the basic format of the method as we were using earlier, but when you have to create the method to be abstract, what you need to do is you have to write abstract keyword before the return type. So now when you create the method as abstract, it can't have any body. So you have to remove the braces and put a semicolon. It will now work as a statement for you. But still you can see we are getting an error. That error is the type chief must be an abstract class to define abstract method. So that means you have to write abstract before a class too. So this is the first important point, that whenever you declare an abstract method, you have to declare that class to be abstract too. If you will not declare that class to be abstract, it will give an error. So this is the first method. Let's create our another method. These are the two abstract methods. Now let's create two non-abstract methods. Let's pass some parameters. And last method is restore. So as you can see, I have created four methods. Two abstract methods and two non-abstract methods. So let's pass a parameter in the abstract method too. It's a rescue mission, so there will be a need of first aid. So let's write first aid. So as you can see, we have successfully created our abstract class. So our second important point is that you cannot instantiate abstract class. That means you can't create an object of an abstract class. As you can see, when I was trying to create the object of the abstract class, it has given me an error. The error is cannot instantiate the type chief. That means you cannot create the object of that class. So to use the abstract classes, you need to inherit that class. So let's create our another class to inherit the abstract class. So the first class was about the orders which we were getting from the chief. Now let's divide the war zone into two categories. Let's call the first war zone as sector 1, which will extend the property of chief. Now let's call the method of the abstract class. We can use any of the method of the abstract class over here. So your first mission should be to rescue the people and to maintain peace over there. So now let's call two methods, that is the rescue, and let's give in some data. See, we have defined our method over here. But as you can see, I am still getting an error. The error says that the type sector 1 must implement the inherited abstract class chief.piece. That means whatever method you have declared as abstract over here, when you inherit that abstract class in any other class, define all the abstract method. So when I will define the other method too, that is piece, the error will be gone. Now similarly, create a class sector 2 and let's extend the property of sector 1. You have rescued the people, you have maintained the peace over there. Now if needed, you have to kill the enemies and to restore the situation. So now let's call those two methods, that is to kill the enemies and to restore the position. See, we have called the two methods over here in the sector2 class. So till now you haven't started the mission, you just have a layout of the mission. So these are the layout of your program. So when you instantiate your class, then the mission will begin. So let's instantiate the class. Let's create an object. See, we have used the reference of the chief class and have created the object of the sector2 class. We have passed the reference of the chief class because it is an abstract class. That means if you have to achieve abstraction, you have to pass the reference of the abstract class so that your compiler will know that you are using an abstract class over here. If you will not pass the reference of the abstract class, it will not override these methods. It will just print the methods which are over here. So as we all know, abstraction provides the data hiding. So by passing the reference of the abstract class, we have told the JVM that only these methods can be called. So if you try to call any other method apart from those four methods, it will give an error. So let's first call the four methods. So we have called all the four methods. Now let's execute the command and see the output first. So when we started the mission, the first mission was to rescue the people. So our first method was rescue. We have got the result as rescuing people need 20 first aid kits now. Our second method is to kill. So that will give us the output that we will need 5 more guns and their ammunition. The third is for the peace. People rescued successfully, we saved the lives. And the fourth one is for the restore mission, that is mission successful. So this is how you can create your abstract class and call the abstract class methods. So this will be all. There are few important points that you should know. So the third important point is that whenever you inherit the abstract class, all the methods have to be overridden. If you will not override those methods, it will give an error. We have seen that. But there is no compulsion for the non-abstract methods. That means if I will not call kill or restore method in this class, which extend to the chief class, it will not give me an error. Our another important point is you can't declare a variable to be abstract. That is, if I will write abstract int a, you will get an error that illegal modifier for the field. That is, our integer variable can only be public, protected, private, static, final or transient or volatile. It can't be abstract. So you have to remember your variable can't be abstract. There is one more thing. As you can see on the left hand side of your screen at the line number 32, there is a arrow key. It says that overrides object oriented.chief.restore. That means the method restore over here is overriding the method of the abstract class over here. But as you can see in the sector1 class, we are overriding the peace and rescue method too. But there is a different sign over here. It says that implements object oriented.chief.peace. That means you are defining those method over here. Over here you are overriding because the method in the abstract class was already having a body. So when you create same method in the another class, you will override that method. So this will be all about the abstract method and abstract classes. If you will find anything difficult to understand, you can ask me in the comment section. In this tutorial, we will learn about final keyword. Final keyword is used to restrict the user from changing the value. So you can suppose final keyword as your wife who will not allow you to do anything or eat anything if she doesn't want you to. Final keyword is used with all of the three. That means variable, method and class. So if you use final keyword with a variable, you can't change the value. If you use final keyword with a method, you will not be allowed to override that method. And number 3, if you use final keyword with a class, you will not be allowed to extend that class. So now let's take an example and see it practically. Go to your Eclipse, create a class. I have created mine, final keyword. Now let's create one more class, class final1. First of all, we will start final keyword with a variable. So there are 3 ways by which you can use final variable. I will be telling you all of the 3 types. So let's start with the first one. The first one is, let's take an integer int a. See, it has not given me any error. So what you have to do is, you have to write final before the data type. And now this variable here will be your final type. But as you can see, we have got an error. So what's the error? The error says that the blank final field A may not have been initialized. That means whenever you assign a variable to be final, you have to assign a value. So as we assign the value, the error has gone. So this is the first way to use a final keyword. And now, as I have told you, we cannot reassign the variable. So now let's extend that class final1 and create the object of the class. So we have inherited our first class, that is final1, and we have created the object of final keyword. So let's print the value of that variable f.a. That will be all. Let's execute the command. As you can see in the console window, we are getting our output. So now, as I have told you, we cannot reassign the value. So now let's try to reassign the value of a. See, we have got an error. The error says that the final field final1.a cannot be assigned. That means once you have assigned the value to a variable which is declared as final, you cannot reassign the value. So this is our first type. Let's go with the second type. Now this type says that you can declare a variable without a value like this. So when I declared it with final keyword, it has given me an error. But if you assign the value of that variable in a constructor, the error will be gone. So now this type of variable is called as blank variable, blank final variable, or uninitialized final variable. So remember, if you have declared a variable of final type, but if you have not initialized it, so you must have to initialize that variable within a constructor, or else it will give you an error. So now let's see the output of that too. f.b. Execute the command. See, we have got the output as 200, which is correct. So this is our second type. So remember, the value of final keyword will only be initialized in the constructor. You can't initialize that variable in the method or elsewhere. So see, I have written some of the important points within comments. You can read it. Now our third method is, you can also declare a final variable as a static final int c. Put a semicolon. See, it has again given me an error. So either you can initialize the variable over here, or what you can do is you can define the value, that is initialize the value within a static block. As I have told you earlier, if you put two braces like this, it will be considered as a block. So writing static before the bracket will make it a static block. You can print the value over here, f.c, f.d. Let's execute the command. See, we have got our output as 100, 200, then again 100, and then the last one, that is for our static, that's 300. So this is how you can use the final keyword in the variable. And remember one thing, if you have declared a variable as a final static, then you can't initialize that variable in the constructor. It can only be initialized in the static block. So this will be all about the final variable. Our next point is using final keyword with the method. So let's create a method now. Now let's just print the value. See, as you can see, I have created a method over here which is final. Now let's try to create another method in our inherited class. As you can see, I have created a method sum, but it has given me an error. The error says that cannot override the final method from final1. That means a final method over here cannot be overridden in any of the inherited class. Let's add the block comment. But you can inherit the final method. That means if you would like to call the final method using the object, you can call it. Let's execute the command. See, I have got my output. Hey, I can't be overridden. Find some other non-final method to override. That means the final method cannot be overridden, but it can be inherited. Now let's create another method with a parameter void sum. Let's give a parameter final int a. Now let's assign the value of a is equal to a plus 3. See, it has given me an error. The error is the final local variable a cannot be assigned. it must be blank and not using a compound assignment. That means the value of a over here can't be changed inside this method. Let's comment this statement and print the value of a. So see, as you can see, I have printed the statement, but it has not given me an error. So let's try to call that method f.sum. Let's give it a value of 5. Now let's execute the command. I have got the output as 5. The value of a variable within the block is 5. But if I try to reassign the value of a, it will give me an error. So from here, you can understand that if a final keyword is used with a parameter in the method, it cannot be reassigned. So this will be all about the final keyword with the method. Now let's go to our third point. It says that if I will assign a final keyword to a class, then that class can't be inherited. So as you can see, when I assigned the final keyword to the class, it has given me an error. The error says that the type final keyword cannot subclass the final class final one. That means if a class which is declared as final, it can't be inherited. So if you would like to inherit the class, you have to remove the final keyword. So this will be all about the final keyword. If you will find any doubt understanding any of the points, you can ask me in the comment section. In this tutorial, we will learn about interface. In our previous tutorial, we have learned about abstract classes. Abstract classes is used for achieving abstraction, but we can't achieve fully abstraction using the abstract classes. So to achieve full abstraction, that is complete data hiding, we use interface. As we have studied earlier, a class is considered as a blueprint for the behavior and state of object. Similarly, an interface is considered as a blueprint for a class. That means in this we can declare static member functions and abstract methods only. It will not contain the definition of those methods, and the variable which we will declare will be static only. So now let's have a pictorial representation of the interface. As you all know, when we have to inherit a class, we use extend keyword. But when we have to inherit our interface, we will be using implements keyword. And then again, if I have to inherit a interface in an interface, I will use extends keyword. Let's create a program first, and then I will let you know about all of these. Go to Eclipse, right click on the package name, go to new. For the first time we are creating interface, so select this option, interface, give it a name. Let's call it vehicle. Click finish. So we have created our interface. Let's create some methods. We have created two methods. The first one is engine, the second one is brake. If you remember from the abstract classes, we have to write abstract each and every time before the method name to make it abstract. But in interface, you don't have to write abstract keyword, because by default each and every method in the interface is public and abstract. So that means if you forgot to write public and abstract keyword before any method, Java compiler will by default add the public and abstract keyword. So suppose you have simply written void break, Java compiler will interpret it like this: public abstract void break. So now we have declared our methods. Let's call these methods. So to use this method, we have to inherit this interface into a class, because we can't create an object of the interface. So let's create a class. Let's call it Audi. We have created a class. Now let's inherit the vehicle interface. So to use the interface, we need to write implements and then the interface name, that is vehicle. This is the format to call the interface. When you have written this, then you have to define those methods in here. That means if you are having the declaration of two methods over here, you have to define those two methods in this class. So let's define those methods. And remember, you have to write it like this: public void, then your method name. Our first method was engine, so let's call it, and then the body of that method. Similarly, you have to write the second method. So If you forgot to write any of the definition like this, you will get an error. The error says that the type OD must implement the inherited abstract method vehicle.break. That means it is a compulsion to define both the abstract method when you are inheriting the interface to a class. So let's print out some statement. See, we have given the print statement for those two methods. Now let's create the object first. We will be creating the object of the class, but will pass the reference of the interface. So let's write the interface name vehicle. We will create the object of the OD class. So this is how you will create the object. It is an upcasting of object which we have studied earlier. So now when you have to call the methods, what you need to do is you have to write a.engine and a.break. So by creating the object of the OD class and passing the reference of the interface, that is vehicle, we can use interface. So let's execute the command first. See, we have got the output. So interface is used to provide fully abstraction. That means if I will create another function over here, and then if I will try to call that method, then I will get an error that the method display is undefined for the type vehicle. That means there is no declaration of display method in the interface vehicle. We have already studied about this in the inheritance part, so you might remember it from there. So this is how you can achieve fully abstraction. Now let's go back to the interface. We have declared our methods. Now let's declare some variable. Suppose I declare int a is equal to 100. So in interface, your variable has to be static and final. That means your variable should look something like this. But if you forgot to write any of these, don't worry, Java compiler add all of these. So by default, all the variables in the interface class are static and final. You can't use non-static variable in the interface. You can check it, write int p and semicolon. It will give an error. So let's try to call this variable in the class. So as you know, we can call the static variable using the class name. So let's write the class name OD dot. You can see we are getting the variable name in the options. So let's write a and let's have this value in the variable int num is equal to this. So as you can see, the error has gone. Let's print out the value. So as you can see, we have not written the static keyword before the variable, but still I am being able to call it using the class name. So from this you can conclude that int a here is our static. So let's execute the command now. See, we are getting our output as 100. And what final keyword does is, you can't reinitialize that variable. That means od.a1001, it will give you an error. The error is the final field vehicle.a cannot be assigned, because once you have assigned the value to a variable which is final, then you can't reassign the value to that variable. So this will be all of how to use an interface. So now let's try to create another interface and inherit both the interfaces first. I have created an interface named 4-wheelers. So now let's declare some methods. Now see, I have created two another methods in the 4-wheeler interface. The first one is gears. Your 4-wheeler will have gears and have tires. So let's extend the property of the vehicle class to the interface 4-wheeler. So you have to write extends and then the name of interface vehicle. That will be all. So by this you have inherited the property of vehicle interface also. So let's go to our class, that is OD. Let's change the implements from vehicle to 4-wheeler. See, as soon as we have changed the implementation of interface from vehicle to 4-wheeler, we have got an error. The error says that the tires function and the gear function has to be defined in this class. So let's define those methods first. So see, I have defined all the 4 methods over here. Let's delete this method, display method, for now. So see, we have implemented all the 4 methods of the interface class. So here, implements means that whatever methods you have declared over here has been implemented over in the class. That means whatever method you have declared over there has been defined in this class. So now let's create the object and pass the reference of our new interface, that is four-wheeler. And now let's call the other two methods, that is a.gear and a.tires. That will be all. Let's execute the command. So as you can see in the console window, we are getting our outputs. Audi has 6 gears. What's new in that? Every car has tires. That's right. So that will be all. Suppose you don't want to define any of these methods like this. I have deleted a method. Then what you need to do is you have to declare your class as abstract. Then that error will be gone. But there will be a new problem for you, that you can't create the object of that class. So then you have to create a new class to create the object and to call the methods. So remember, it is a compulsion to write all the methods, but if you are not writing the methods, you have to declare that class to be abstract and you can't create the object of that class. So this will be all about the interface, but there are still some important points I would like to tell. Let's go to any of the interface first. See, our another important point is that we can't create a constructor in an interface. So if I try to call a constructor over here, it will give me an error. The error is interface cannot have a constructor. So you can't use constructor in an interface. So now let's recall all the points. The first one was the interface is used to achieve fully abstraction. That means any method which is declared in the interface has to be abstract. The second important point is that if a variable is declared in the interface, it should be static and final. If you forgot to write it as static or final, the Java compiler will automatically add the keywords. Our another important point was interface don't have constructors. The fourth important point is similarly like abstract classes, interface can't have a object. That means you can't instantiate a interface. The fifth important point is that you can use interface to achieve multiple inheritance. So this will be all about the interface. So now let's see the differences between the interface and abstract classes. So here is our chart for the difference between the abstract class and inheritance. The first point says that abstraction class can have abstract and non-abstract methods, but interface can only have abstract method. It is true, we have seen that in abstract classes we can have both the methods, that is the one which is declared abstract and the one which is not declared as abstract. But in interface, your method has to be abstract. The second point says that abstract class can have any type of variable, but in interface you can have only static and final variable. The third point says that because abstract class doesn't provide fully abstraction, so it can have constructor, it can have static method and main method, but you can't create the object of either abstract class or interface. The fourth point says that abstract class doesn't support multiple inheritance. In Java, when you are using classes, we can't create multiple inheritance program using a class because there is a chance of ambiguity error and a lot of complexity. But by using interfaces, we can use the multiple inheritance. We will look at the example of multiple inheritance in our next tutorial. Our fifth and last point is abstract class can provide the implementation of interface, but interface can't provide the implementation of abstract class. This is something similar to the first point. That means we can have all the methods of an abstract class as abstract, so we will achieve fully abstraction. But in interface we can't have both the methods, that is abstract and non-abstract method. So in interface also all the method has to be abstract. So these are the few basic differences between the abstract classes and interface. Hope you have understood. If you will find any difficulty in understanding any of these things or any of the topics, you can ask me in the comment section. In our next tutorial, we will learn about multiple inheritance. Thank you.